Late Night with the Devil takes place over a single, long-lost episode of a 1970s chat show. It's a Halloween special where the headline guest is a supposedly possessed girl. It's one of the more unique premises of recent horror, and we couldn't wait to give it a look. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Tim.
Heyo.
This is a horror movie podcast. I honestly, I thought you were going to say more than that. I was caught off guard by the quick heyo. But yes, welcome everyone. It's a horror movie podcast. We get together to talk about a film. Today we are going to be talking about Late Night with the Devil, which is one of the more sort of buzzed about recent horror movies. Got a little bit of hype when it came out. No?
Yeah, no, I agree.
You look so suspicious, like you're up to something.
The buzz threw me off.
You ever heard of a movie having buzz before?
I don't know. The way you say it just makes me think of bees. I don't know.
Fine. Yes, Tim, here as always to give us... Do I call that insight? I don't know if I can call that insight. It feels a bit of an insult to the word.
Let's call it foreshadowing.
Foreshadow? Wait, what have you got planned for later? What bees are on show? Yes, so we'll start spoiler free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into them. I will also say, just before we start talking about the movie, that if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, do hit the like button. Helps out a bunch if you do. And of course, you can get extras and stuff if you want to support us over at Patreon. I'll tell you more about all those extras at the end of the show. But we'll get into it.
Are we basically like DVDs now? You get like all these extra features.
Well,
like
no.
Director's commentary and deleted scenes and production assistant interviews.
First of all, what production assistant? What are we talking about?
These are the kind of special features you would find on a DVD. Circa 2005.
Yeah, but we don't have a production assistant. And, I mean... He doesn't do jack shit. And as funny as it would be to try it, what do you think we could say in a commentary track to our own episode? Like, if we were talking over this right now, what insights would we be giving the dear audience about the process?
It'd probably be a lot of like, oh, Tim's about to make a good point right here. Oh, there it is.
Oh, so it's a bad commentary track. Okay. That was only funny when Arnold was doing it on Total Recall, because he gets really excited about the things he's watching. And he's like, and this bit right here is when he looks over his shoulder and it's super exciting.
I think, I hope I'm not misremembering this, but I believe is it Samuel L. Jackson that does a commentary for Deep Blue Sea, and then like as soon as his character dies, he leaves?
That sounds right, yeah. I mean,
I know as someone did that. I want to say it was him.
To his credit, though, he wasn't recorded with like the other two people on the track. They were all recorded separately and just edited together. Right, yeah. So it's not like he just left a room that had two other people. It's not like he was with the director, said, "All right, I'm out. Bye bye."
Well, let me ask you this: like in the glory days of DVDs, with the copious amount of special features and extras, whenever you'd have multiple commentaries, was there one you would always go to first? Would you do a director's commentary or like a actor commentary, or what were you drawn to the most?
That's a good question. It kind of depended on my mood, I guess. I think if you have multiple actors together, that tended to be a bit more lively because they'd all be kind of friendly with each other. If I was wanting more serious, like, you know, behind the scenes thoughts about how to make a movie, director or writer would be the go-to.
Cool.
I can tell you what, though, I never ever, and no disrespect to the people in their jobs, but I never in a million years would ever listen to like, here's like the set designer and the production assistant talking over 4 hours of Lord of the Rings. I'm good, thanks. I get a lot of work put into it, but I'm good.
No, I mean, yeah, obviously very appreciative of what they do, but yeah, I mean, that was something I usually wouldn't check out.
Yeah. So anyway, we're here to talk about Late Night with the Devil, Tim, which the premise of which, for those of you who don't know, and you want some spoiler-free thoughts at the start here, it's basically, I guess in a way you could kind of class it under found footage, I mean, in a sense, it is literally someone found the master tape of like a TV taping, which I guess counts as found footage. But I hesitate to just straight up call it that though, because it's emulating like an actual professional TV production. It doesn't look like typical found footage. It looks like it's emulating a 70s TV talk show, right? It's a late night talk show. That's what it's going for. And the idea that some spooky stuff happens over the course of this episode that, after it aired live was never aired again. It's going for that, okay, we've found this in some basement somewhere and we're presenting it to the audience to see what went down that night, that something bad happened. And, we don't know what the bad thing is really until, really near the end of the movie. But, so it's an interesting premise for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it stars David Dastmalchian? Malchian?
I want to say Malchian, but Lord knows.
Yeah, I'm not sure if how to pronounce the last name, but he's been in a ton of stuff over the years. He's got a very memorable face.
Especially lately, he's been making the horror rounds, I feel like.
Yes, he was in the awful Boogeyman last year. Yes. Not his fault, but yeah, he was there. Yeah, maybe the biggest movie he was ever in, even though it was a tiny role, was The Dark Knight.
That's true. Later he would pop back up in the DCU with the Suicide Squad. But yeah, probably still more people know him for The Dark Knight.
Well, more people saw The Dark Knight. I think it's fair to say. But he's the lead role. He's the talk show host. He's the main character, if you will. I can't say I really recognized anyone else. Apparently, the parapsychologist lady who's on with the girl, she was in Saw 5, according to IMDb. I'll take their word for it.
Okay.
But the sort of like the other guy on the show, I don't even know what you call this role on one of these shows, but the guy who's over by the band who interjects occasionally. Like
the sidekick, yeah.
Yeah, sidekick, whatever you call that character. I looked up his IMDb because I was, usually for a movie like this, I'll look up all the main cast and see if there's anything notable. He has literally only done this and a short film, and that is it.
Ooh.
And it's not like he's a young guy, he's like a middle-aged looking dude, so clearly, he's just, I don't know if they just found him somewhere, thought you're perfect for this role we've got, or he's a friend of the directors.
Yeah.
But we got two directors here and writers. We got Cameron Cairnes and Colin Cairnes. I'm going to guess brothers, but I mean, I don't know. I'm just making a leap at that. I haven't seen any of their stuff. They have done some movies that I've not heard of, but the last one was like 2016 as a director, but they've been working as other things in movies. Like one has got like tons of editing credits, for example. Oh, okay. So they've been doing other stuff in the industry. And seemingly, put a lot of effort getting into, getting this made and getting this sort of kind of, because like I say, they've got other things, but like I've heard of none of them.
Oh, good for them.
They directed a movie called Scare Campaign in 2016 and a movie called 100 Bloody Acres in 2012.
Ugh, oh, well, it probably wouldn't have been that 100 Bloody Acres sounds like a bad Winnie the Pooh horror movie.
But still, though, I mean, 8 years since their last movie. They're not constantly directing things. Is kind of the point I'm getting across here.
Huh.
So.
Yeah, I hear it's hard. It's hard to get things made in Hollywood sometimes.
Okay. I'm just trying to have a bit of flavour conversation about the people involved in the movie, Tim. That's all.
I'm contributing. You know what? I'm sick. I'm at a disadvantage here. I'm doing my God-given best.
I feel like I'm giving you a piece of information and you get any thoughts on it, and you're hitting me back with something you might find in like a fortune cookie, and that's it.
Hey, some of those fortune cookies are very insightful, I'll have you know. Except for the ones that are just like weirdly not fortunes. They're just like, you have good hands. You're like, what? Okay. All
right. Anyway, let's kill the preamble. We need to actually get to talk about the movie. I'm going to lose my goddamn mind. Tim.
Yeah.
What did you think of Late Night with the Devil? It's not a good sound. That's not a good sound. Oh no.
Yeah, no, I gotta be honest here. I'm a little disappointed. I would say overall, I liked it. You know, I liked it more than I disliked it. I don't think it's horrible, but I did find it to be a tad disappointing. This was something that, I was actually quite looking forward to. We talked about it a few times before. We mentioned it, at the start of the year when we were talking about like upcoming horror stuff we're excited for. And then we talked about it a little bit when the trailer came out. And like I had mentioned before, it has just a really interesting premise. I do like whenever, a horror movie can tap into something that, we haven't really seen before. And I wouldn't say it's like completely new. Like it did kind of remind me of, something like Ghost Watch or the WNUF Halloween special, which is, similar in the ways where they have like a, like a television program that's investigating like some paranormal thing or whatever. But, the difference though, I'd say is like those are more like, news TV show focused. While, like you said, this is like a late night show. And I think a big strength of it is, just like I thought they did a really good job portraying like, not that like I watched a lot of Carson or whatever, late night stuff from that era, but growing up, late night shows were like a big staple of mine. Like I used to watch like Conan, a ton. Throughout my years, and even growing up, like I would just watch TV all the time. So I would even like watch like Leno and stuff, from time to time. But I do enjoy the talk show format, and I think it's very interesting to set a horror movie here. And David Dastmalchian, however you say it, I thought he did a really good job as the host. He's very charming. Like all the other like the guests and the other people on the show, I thought worked really well. I thought whenever they were doing the show, I liked the way it looked and how it kind of tried to emulate that time period. So all that stuff I was into, and I liked. My big problem with the movie is I kind of wish that they just did that, but instead they like kind of insert these behind the scenes moments, and there was it seemed like a really overly long, annoying like just information dump in the beginning of the movie before the show actually starts. And I wasn't even really sure like who was supposed to be talking or presenting all those facts and clips at the beginning, but to me it just felt like they didn't have enough confidence in the premise or whatever, because I feel like you could have just really portrayed a lot of that information and stuff throughout the movie by just showing the show instead of having to kind of do all that stuff, because it just, I don't know, felt like a little forced when, I don't know, I think the strength of it is the actual show. So I kind of wish they just stuck to that. To me, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more for that. But at the end of the day, though, I don't think it's like horrible. Like it was I still enjoyed it. I didn't hate it, but to me, it was just like, all right, this is okay or good. It wasn't like amazing or anything, which, unfortunately is because, it was hyped up a little bit and I was really looking forward to it.
I watched a lot of stinkers recently as well, so it's kind of hopeful
right, yeah.
Like this was the next coming of great horror.
Right.
So for me, I think I would say that I liked it. I would say it's good. I don't think it's perfect. So the opening like 5 minutes, which is like a docudrama kind of like intro, where it's like, here's the history of who this presenter was, and goes into the backstory and sets it up before the actual start of the, and it does that thing where the voice is like, oh, the following is the discovered master tape of the final ever episode of this late night show that was done. And it was like, I think as I was watching it initially, I was kind of into it because it got me into the mood for what we were about to watch. I think in hindsight, it does kind of feel like they didn't trust the audience enough to just sort of pick up clues. Where I will disagree with you on, though, is the ad break stuff, where you see what's going on with them during the ad breaks. I actually kind of appreciated that because I thought it gave it like a different because I think the idea of that, even though it stretches the believability of like why are they filming specific things, because it's not that weird that there was B-roll, right between the ad breaks. That's not that unheard of in TV. For the cameras still to be rolling and recording during a live production, so there's still stuff there for when the ads were playing. I get that. I think they maybe should have held back a little bit and not followed characters around with it, so that it felt a bit more authentic in that sense. But I didn't mind that stuff because they did add these other little teases and insights into decisions that were being made about what would be coming next on the show and things like that. So I'm not against that part of it. My bigger problem for me in breaking the immersion of what the whole gimmick of the movie is, which is that it's this late night talk show. We can't talk about it until later, obviously, but the final like 10 minutes, I think kind of just abandons what the movie's really going for. And I felt
Absolutely.
For me that was the biggest disappointment, was the last like 5-10 minutes. I thought that was a shame, and I think that also maybe over explained a couple of things that felt like it was dumbing things down. And I feel like, you know what, for people who aren't going to think about it too much and just enjoy the scares and enjoy the build to whatever, I don't think it's going to matter to them if they don't maybe connect all the dots. And I think for everyone else who is thinking about it and looking for the hints and maybe watching it more than once, I think they'd appreciate it being a bit more of a puzzle almost to sort of piece together. But instead, between the opening info dump and then the ending kind of spelling out at least most of what's happening, it does do too much. But honestly, the bigger problem for me was just the idea that it kind of betrayed its like format. Like it was like, this is the idea of the show. We're watching this master tape of this live TV broadcast, and yeah, we're getting this B-roll in between during the ad breaks. But I like that because it offered a lot of things to like further explore what was going on with the characters and seeing them react to things that they would never bring up on the main broadcast. I was okay with that. But once it gets to that last 5-10 minutes, it just kind of like, oh, now we're doing like we're kind of cheating. We're like, okay, what is this now? We're not really watching a movie, or we're not watching the live broadcast anymore. We're watching something else or something. So we'll get into that more in spoilers, obviously. But for me, that was maybe if I'm disappointed, and I would say I'm a little disappointed, it would be with the ending more than anything. Couple of dodgy over the top CG things as well. I would maybe also put in the negative column. But I would say I really like the vibe of most of it. I like the presentation. I liked that they did most of it in 4:3. They actually changed the aspect ratio a lot. All the B-roll stuff is like 1:6:6 black and white, whereas all the actual broadcast stuff is 4:3. And it walks this interesting fine line of being like high quality modern 4K, but having a few defects to make it look like it's an old TV show. So it's actually much higher quality than anything you'd see broadcast like this from the 70s, but they have a little bit of like chromatic aberration, just a little bit, just to give it that kind of old videotape kind of look, whilst it still looks very high quality, so it doesn't look shit by today's standards either.
Right.
So it's a really interesting middle ground where they tried to capture some of the feel of that old stuff, but they knew no one wanted to watch something that actually looked like it was from the 70s.
Right, yeah.
In terms of image, in terms of raw image quality.
Right, yeah, like you want to invoke that like feeling, but you don't want to actually like, completely emulate it, because that would
be too much.
I will say, for the behind the scenes stuff, I'm not against the idea of that, actually. Like, I think that's kind of good, but I don't know, it just, I mean, like you're saying, like some of the instances where like they're just following characters around, it's like, okay, like they wouldn't really be doing that if they're filming a TV show and stuff. And then also just the, I don't know, I did think it kind of like looked too good. Like it just always made me feel like I'm coming out of the movie. I don't know if they just found a better way to integrate it. I
think honestly the way to do it would either to have that stuff feel more like found footage, and there's like a cameraman who's like, you can sort of like make the cameraman a bit of a character almost, and sort of like get this idea that there's someone just walking around with a camera, or and this is maybe even my preference, is that B-roll footage should be one static camera that's like a high angle just looking down on the set, and maybe just get the idea that for the presentation of this tape, whoever's putting this out with the opening documentary looking bit, has boosted the audio of certain conversations around the room, depending on who we're meant to be focusing on, and even add like a sort of audio hiss to it to be like, oh, we're boosting this because clearly, Jack, the main character, is saying something important to like the show producer, so we're going to boost the audio there, so give it a bit of a hiss. But I guess they're like, no, we want this to feel a bit more. Again, is like that would be really showing devotion to the idea and like the presentation, but it would also turn off people who I think wouldn't be wanting to accept something that kind of like.
I totally get that, and I can see as how like a filmmaker, that you would probably want to, try to, make it more appealing to general audiences or whatever. And I mean, I hope this doesn't, sound insulting or anything, but I do feel like, confidence is a thing that like, if you just had maybe a bit more confidence in some of the strengths of like, the premise and what you're doing, that, maybe you wouldn't have to worry so much about like, oh yeah, people gonna get bored or not understand this part or whatever. But I don't know. Hopefully I'm not sounding too harsh, because again, it's not like I hate it or think it's awful. Like I think it is a pretty, enjoyable watch. It's just, there's, these kind of few things here and there that could, that kept it away from being like, oh my God, this is like, amazing, must see like movie of the year or whatever,
Yeah, it seems to be hitting for people differently. I've definitely seen people have similar complaints to you or similar complaints with me with the ending. But some people still loving it anyway because of the vibe and like the rest, because the rest of it does, I think, really evoke a really cool vibe. I like all of the main characters, and I'm including all of the guests that he brings on. I think they all add to the movie. I think they're all fun to watch, and it kind of builds quite nicely with how like the first one's just this medium who's like trying to talk to the dead, and like there's just a little bit of a hint of something more menacing is kind of in the air, and we don't get like full context for it until later, but it's kind of just this early tease of what to come later. And I think all of those characters were entertaining. I loved the skeptic character who had the facial hair. Like, I think he was entertaining.
Such a dick.
Oh, he is such a dick, but it was really entertaining, and it really gave this vibe of this sort of trashy TV show that was like just trying to like make people fight each other for entertainment's sake. And like I said, with the backstage stuff, like it wouldn't be out of line to say that, oh, Jack's wearing a tie clip mic, so technically audio exists of everything he said between, because I think another thing the ad breaks do by sticking with them is it almost does this thing where it breaks up the pacing, so you get like a break from like the showmanship of what they're trying to present as a show, and then a little bit of the reality of like, okay, this is like what's driving their decisions and what some of their concerns are and all the rest of it. We do have to go a little bit about controversy.
I was gonna see if you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should bring it up because it is something that I think I do care about in a broad sense. I don't think it's that big a deal in this movie specifically, and the reason why I say that, and I get why some people don't want to just give it a pass because there's the slippery slope, and if you don't make a fuss with this little thing, then it could keep growing and growing. But whenever it goes to like an ad break, you get like the sort of the screen that's like, hey, we'll be back in a minute kind of thing. You get like a interstitial graphic, and these graphics, at least a few of them anyway, were made with AI, and it created a bit of a stink on social media about a month or so ago when this sort of came to light. I think the reason why I don't feel too strongly about this particular case, obviously I would prefer that they just paid some artists to actually make some art, sure. But the whole debate over AI and like the moral side of like it being included in like movies and pieces of art and things like that only really kicked off like after this movie was done, right? This movie was done for festivals like sometime like middle of last year, and I just don't know if the decision to like mess around with the AI to see what they could get from it, and keep in mind like it's not like the cast involved or all the effort that went into the movie. Like it's not like they knew, there's going to be like an AI element at the end. It's literally just these screens at the end. And I get that we don't want a slippery slope, and I agree with that. And I will be much harsher on any other movie that has AI elements after like now. Like, this gets a little bit of a pass because it was mostly made before we even started having these conversations. In a year's time, a movie comes out with like something that's AI, I'm going to be a lot more negative and, you know, maybe even boycott the son of a bitch, depending on like how severe we're talking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
yeah. No, I mean, I'm pretty much in the same boat. Yeah, I mean, I have no love for AI. I'm sure it's gonna replace me at my job at some point. So and yeah, you know, obviously, like you know, this is something I see a lot of people talking about online because, yeah, I'm so invested in comic books, and so, like, you know, on social media, yeah, I just follow lots of artists, so this is a topic that comes up a lot. It's just it's just so frustrating that, like, you know, especially again, like in this case, you know, probably like you were saying, I'll give the, you know, the people in the movie the benefit of the doubt that they probably didn't understand that, yeah, this would be such a big deal and controversy at the time that they were making it, or whatever. But yeah, like it's just like it's just like such a small thing, and it's like you couldn't have paid an artist like, you know, to do that. Like, it's not like that would have been like half your budget or anything.
Yeah,
like,
that's the thing. I don't feel like this choice was even made from like a cost saving effort though. I almost feel like it was just, oh, this new tool exists, let's play around with it and see what we can whip up. And that, like, obviously at the time I don't think they were thinking about any implications of that or if anyone would give a shit. But obviously it is more of a hot topic now. It's something that we're all, and you mentioned comic books. I mean, just in the last couple of weeks, DC Comics pulled a bunch of variant covers that had been solicited because they were accused of having AI art in them.
Oh, really?
And I don't know if they...
I didn't even hear about that.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever confirmed or said that they did, but they said, you know what, we're just going to replace them and do new covers. And I like that story just mainly because it's like, okay, yeah, we're keeping the stigma up. So I don't want to have to worry that when I'm reading a comic book that half of the art's been like aided with like AI to, you know...
Well, if you notice, like, if you're reading an issue and you notice, like, Nightwing has 7 fingers on one hand. Like,
it's so funny though, because like sometimes you do get dodgy art from like years ago, and like I feel like some mistakes you'd be like, is this AI? Is it just the artist having like a weird like day? Because sometimes you do see weird panels where they've had to rush a couple of panels to get the book out in time. You're like, okay, they've clearly just squiggled a couple of like stick figures in the background of this panel to get it going.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's a shame because, yeah, it is like when it was coming out, it was kind of like, oh, that was the conversation that was taking over the movie, and it seems like it's died down now. So I don't know if people are just kind of forgot about it or whatever. Like, I'm sure, like, you know, it's not the biggest movie in the world, so it's, you know, I don't know if that many people are talking about outside of our, like, you know, kind of like horror circle and stuff.
Yeah, there was a stink when the Secret Invasion show from Marvel came out and the opening title sequence was all AI.
Right, yeah.
I never watched that show, but I did see a clip of the titles.
Either.
And it did look like, this looks like just AI vomit. Just like that sort of smooth look to it all over the screen. Which, you know, I mean, hopefully people make enough of a stink. It's something that they stay away from, because we all just sort of shun the products that use AI.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Hopefully, I assume or hope that the best outcome of this would be that, like you were saying, like, yeah, the people involved probably, you know, didn't think about the implications, but now that it has been brought up, hopefully going forward, if the next movie they make or whatever, they're not going to resort to that.
Oh yeah, if the next movie has a ton of AI in it, then questions will be asked. Unless it's like some sort of weird satire thing where there's like one piece of AI art because it's supposed to be like a joke. Actually, I remember I want to say it was a new True Detective season that came out. I think it was like a poster on a wall in the background or something. It was like a fake movie, but someone accused it of being AI, and like the creators tried to like defend it and say, yeah, it's AI. The idea is that the character had an AI poster. It was to show, but it felt like this weird excuse to justify why there was a weird AI poster on the wall.
Okay.
I don't remember the details, but it was a really awkward argument. But yeah, keep raising a stink, people, because no one wants art replaced with AI. And I don't just mean movie. I mean just in general something that's supposed to be creative. I mean, if you want to use AI to like improve other things that don't matter, that's fine. But like,
wasn't there like some news story or someone that was talking about how, or maybe it was just someone posting online about AI or something, but like someone was saying like, oh yeah, the future of movies is AI, where like you can like pick your digital avatar and insert them like in whatever movie you want. So like if you come home and you want to be like, I want to watch a new Jurassic Park movie with me as the lead, like in it, like you can do that.
That's not art. That's more of a video game. No, that's not to say that video games aren't art, because they are and can be, absolutely, but that's not a movie. A movie is creators telling a story and using the tools they have to make that story. So
yeah. Yep. I think that's like the thing that's annoying about a lot of the like, you know, people that are really pushing for AI is just like the cockiness of being like, oh yeah, I can probably use AI to make something as good as, you know, any, you know, Scorsese or Spielberg or whatever movie. But like, yeah, I'm sure the crap a computer just garbles out will be as good as, you know, something human thought about and worked on. And
that's before you even get to the part where AI is trained on existing work. So there's like a copyright issue almost of like, yeah, the AI is like, oh, it's shitting out a Spielberg movie, but it's been doing it by like analyzing all the Spielberg movies and regurgitating something that is based on his work. So therefore, technically, that's not okay either. Just you take the artistic argument out of it. It's not okay on a sort of like a moral level, like whatever.
Sure.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we could probably sit and talk about this for ages, but it was worth bringing up because there was a bit of a discussion around this movie.
I was like, the irony of someone being like, I'm going to use AI to make a new Terminator movie about machines taking over the world or whatever.
I mean, at least there's some, like you say, some dramatic irony and such a thing. Terminator 8, written by Skynet. Anyway, that's
people
that.
like, it's actually the one good Terminator sequel since 2.
Well, I mean, the competition's not sky high there, is it? Let's be honest. So yeah, I mean, as far as the movie goes, otherwise, I think it's got a really cool atmosphere. I dig the presentation. Obviously, as we said, is like a format, but I also dig the presentation of like having it under this guise of being this TV show with guests and kind of like building up. There's an atmosphere that's created by it, and like it just feels something that most modern movies don't really go for in quite the same way, which I really appreciate. So
I'm also an easy mark for like, you know, anything that takes place on Halloween or like with TV shows, like anytime it's a special Halloween episode. So I mean, it's a shame that this actually didn't come out like closer to Halloween, but it was gonna be in the I just love anything that's like, oh, hey, it's Halloween and here's some people in costumes and stuff. Like that always gets me in the mood.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a pretty independent movie, so it's not like they made it with a release date in mind. They like,
right,
just when it worked out, it was going to be kind of spring east-ish season, kind of, and that's just the way it worked out. But which by the way, there was like 9 like production companies or whatever at the start of this movie. So you can always tell a low budget movie when it's like like 9 small companies all pitched in a little bit.
I was watching it with my wife who like didn't really know anything about the premise or whatever of the movie. So I think like one of the production logos was like a little longer, and I think it was like it was like claymation or animation or something.
That's just the one with the wolf in the street, right? Where
I think so, yeah. And like, and my wife was like, "Okay, this is interesting. What kind of movie is this?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is just it's not the movie yet."
I can't remember what movie it is, but there was a Korean movie, maybe even a couple, back in the sort of like the early 2000s. I remember one of the production companies being like toilet pictures, and it'd be like a toilet seat as part of the logo, and I'm like, what? Who thought this was a good idea? Someone thought this was funny, obviously, and that's why they've picked it. But it's like I'm watching a horror movie from Korea, and I'm getting greeted with toilet pictures.
That wasn't. I don't think that was a Korean movie, but that was just reminding me of the one we watched. Was it Toilet of the Dead?
Oh yeah, it was no. Ass of the Dead? No, wait on. Hold on. I see you're making me question this now. Yes, this was never like an episode of Screams around like that.
We just watched it for fun.
Zombie Ass Toilet of the Dead. That was it.
There we go.
I knew there was something else to that other than just Toilet of the Dead.
Where's the American remake of that?
They're cowards. Tim, they're cowards. And it's on YouTube apparently, according to my Google results. So
maybe we'll do it as a bonus one day.
It would be a good bonus episode. I can't deny it. Can't deny it. Maybe when we're doing some like a zombie month or something, that'll be the bonus episode that month.
Sure.
Why not? All right. I think we're ready for spoilers. We're going to talk about the movie in depth. Would we do that? Yeah. Tim's agreeing. All right. Yep. So that's spoilers then for A Late Night with the Devil. So the movie starts with like 5 minutes or so of like a narrator basically doing like a documentary kind of like voiceover with like obviously photographs they've taken and like shots of like the actor, and it's basically saying, oh, this guy, you know, wanted to be a late night talk show host, and this show called Night Owls was his big thing, and it did well. It had good ratings and kind of captured the midnight of America, as they say in the narration. But it goes into his marriage, and then the fact that his wife got cancer and died a year ago, and they're on like season 4 of the show. Ratings have been declining, and he really wants to be number 1 in the late night slot, but Carson's still taking it like every night, as close as he's got, and he's never beaten Carson. And it goes into some other stuff as well, which is that there's rumors about him going to this retreat in California every summer, which this was the stuff that I felt like they were giving us too much at the start, especially in hindsight.
Yeah, I really didn't need any of this. Like, I just think it would have been like, just allow yourself to just be like a regular talk show where like spooky stuff happens. You don't have to have all this like backstory of like, ooh, like is he in like a weird secret cult or something. It's like, that stuff doesn't matter.
Well, I'm okay with that being his backstory. I'd rather it sort of come out as the movie progresses rather than being this kind of dump at the start.
It just feels like too forced to me.
Okay. Well, I mean, that means you're saying you don't like the plot then, because that's a big part of the plot.
Oh, I don't think you could have just had it like be like a possessed girl comes on the show. I think that would have been, I don't know, that would have worked better for me.
Well, which is fine, but that's you saying you don't like what the plot of this, because the whole point of this movie, especially by the time you get to the end, is like how his backstory ties into like what's happening, which is a fair opinion. I'm just.
Oh, I mean, I don't feel like it factors that much in from that much of the movie really until the end, I would say.
I mean, the scene to scene, not so much, I guess, but it is important. The reason why it's happening is because of his backstory, though.
Right, but I don't think that, like, I don't know, it's not something that's like brought up that much, really. I don't know, for most of the movie, I would think, except for in the beginning and the end, and maybe they talk about it a few times here and there. But to me, it didn't seem like you would have really lost much. You would just had to, change the last like 10 minutes or whatever if you just kind of dumped it.
Yeah, I mean, there's hints throughout. Obviously, the possessed girl says a couple of things that hints at it. There's like bits throughout. Which I'm not arguing with you. If this is how you feel about all this stuff, I don't mind it conceptually. I just don't think it should have been hinted at so hard in this opening info dump. But it basically explains that this is like the season. I thought it was the season finale, but it's the sweeps week, right? And it's like the Halloween episode. And the ratings have went down over the last year or so. So they've been trying really, really hard to cause controversy. And you see like a montage of like some of the weird guests he's had on to try and create like drama so that people will watch the show. And they even showed it as well when they revealed that his wife was dying of cancer. She came on the show as a guest, and it was this sort of like dramatic like thing where she was there. She had the bald head, but she had the bandana on, and she had a breather, and she was like giving this like sob story about how they first met, and like you kind of get this feeling like, okay, is he a nice guy, or is he exploiting the fact that his wife's dying to pop a rating? Because that's what it feels like right now.
And I thought some of this stuff was pretty interesting, and it did feel like at least one or two things kind of felt like references to like famous talk show moments. Like I know there's that one where they have like that girls like just screaming and swearing at him, which I want to say, I feel like that was like a famous thing that happened on Letterman. I think with maybe, I forget if it was like Cher or Madonna or someone like that, but I think they were just like swearing at Letterman, and he was, I think he might have said like something like similar to what he said, like, okay, like we'll be right back, and she won't. But I could be completely wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's a thing that happened.
It wouldn't surprise me if some of these are kind of meant to emulate some real, particularly these ones in the montage where it's just kind of like quick snippets of things, and it's like, here's some recognizable ideas. But I mean, the real thing is though, is like, okay, so here's we found this master tape. It's never been seen since it originally broadcast live, and even have like the sort of the time code kind of like start of it, the ident. And it goes into it, and that's where the bulk of the movie is this like TV show. There's probably some other details that I've not mentioned from that opening, but they'll come up naturally as we talk about the rest of it. I wouldn't be concerned about that. Actually, honestly, the thing that was sort of striking to me about the start of this is, he comes out and they do the whole goofy thing where he's like hiding in the sheet and he scares his sidekick character. Well, let's get some used to some names here. So the sidekick character who's over at the band is Gus, and obviously our main character is Jack. So we'll just keep these names straight so we can refer to them easily. I thought it was interesting that when he's doing his opening monologue for the audience, he talks about it being sweep, and when someone yells that they love him, he's like, "Oh, get that woman a Nielsen diary," and I'm like, "That's like." Did people in the 70s understand like these terms? I feel like this is really inside TV baseball here.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? Fair enough. Like maybe they did. Maybe I wasn't watching late night talk shows in the 70s. I was unalive. I won't say dead because I wasn't born yet. It's a bit different, but
okay.
You can't be dead before you're born. You just don't exist.
That sounds like some type of weird logic puzzle. Okay.
I'm sure there's some philosophy like class. Like, are you dead before you're born? Question.
Mm-hmm. I mean, don't they say like all time is happening all at once? So like, I don't know, like right now, aren't I both dead and alive, young and old? Like,
who's this they, Tim?
I don't know. I might have had some expired cold medicine before the show. So.
The first guest that he has on, right, is the medium, Christo, who's this medium who comes out, and what I kind of liked about this is that it really did feel like he was a charlatan for a lot of this, because it felt like he was struggling really hard. He was like, "Oh, there's like a, is there like a Ben or there's that was Peter, right? Because it was Peterson or
Peterson, yeah."
Or it ended up being Peterman was like who the guy knew, but he was doing that thing. Does anyone in here know a so and so? And like eventually it got to like this guy's like, yeah, I knew someone who had a similar name, but and this was mostly played for laughs, and it was entertaining just seeing the medium kind of mess up and struggling to find like a real tether that would make it sound like he knew anything about this guy.
Did they ever make any reference if he is supposed to be like an audience plant or something? Because he seemed like too witty to like have all these comebacks. I kept waiting for them to be like, "Oh yeah, like that was great to have that guy be part of the show" or something.
No, I think this was just 1976 you is what this was. Okay. Some smart ass in the crowd. That's what this was.
Yeah, like I forget what he said, but like yeah, like everything he said, he had a line. He was like, "Oh, like was talking about like his ex-wife or something." He was like, "Oh, yeah, like she like passed on or something." Like, "Oh no, like yeah, I haven't seen her in like 2 weeks or something." But like, they had like a funny banter back and forth.
Yeah, but then he goes over to these two women, like an older woman and like a sort of younger woman, a mother and daughter, and he's like, "Oh hey, like Benny or Edmund or I can't remember what the name was. Doesn't really matter." But like, "Oh yeah, like that was the brother / son of these two characters," and he gets this quite accurate. He brings up like a nickname that he had for like a teddy bear that no one else, even the sister at first didn't remember it until the mum said, no, that was the thing when he was like 4 or 5, and and it's like, okay, the audience is a bit more convinced by this, and I think through all this, I really enjoyed how the performance from the lead. He was like, he's doing this very kind of enthusiastic TV show host where he's like really sort of like wants to believe, or at least show that he's believing it to the audience and say, oh, this is amazing, this is great, this is that. So it really gets that presentation part of it down like super pat, like really good stuff.
Yeah. Again, David Dastmalchian just does a really good job like embodying like this type of character. Like he definitely feels like he was kind of made to play like a 1970s talk show host.
So he's basically done with the segment. Like he's shown off, he's talked to these two women who have gotten emotional because they really believe that their dead sibling / son who committed suicide a year ago has really given them a message from beyond the grave, and the audience gives a polite clap. Also, before we move on, next to the first guy that was in the crowd, we should talk about Skeleton Man, because I see a lot of social media buzz about this guy who sits in a skeleton costume, who never says anything,
really?
never does anything. He just sits there very stoically, and he's so focused on in this moment when like Jack sort of says a couple of things to him, like, "Oh, I'm just ribbing you," and he pokes him in the rib of the costume. That was like, oh, he's going to turn out to be something later. He's going to be like I don't know, someone important by the end of this movie, and he never does. He's just there.
Yeah.
But
that's funny. Yeah, my wife thought the same thing. She was like, "Oh, that guy's creepy. He's gonna like show up later or something."
But but the thing that the segment's done, but then like the medium guy, he starts to like freak out. Like he starts like acting like he's like in great pain and he's holding his head. And he's like, oh, there's like a really strong force, and it's like really hurting him. So you're thinking, oh, this is like a demon or something bad's here. But he starts saying, oh, there's like there's a melee. Is there a melee? And there's a man, an unmarried man who wears a wedding ring. And he says a bunch of stuff, but those were the important details, which come back up in a little bit. But they sort of go to the ad break and be like, okay, let's try and sort him out. But he never looks comfortable again. He looks like he's kind of unwell, like, because they do that talk show thing. It's a lot of UK talk shows do this, where they keep the guests out while the next guest comes out, so they're all sort of sitting together and they can kind of interact a little bit and whatnot. So he stays out for the next guest. But this is just your first teaser. This first segment is mostly just the TV show where everything's going normal, except that one bit at the end where it's like, oh, that was a bit more intense. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I thought it did a good job of like escalating where, it like you're saying, it starts off as like actually pretty funny, and you're looking at the guy and be like, oh, this guy is such a fraud. But then I do like once the tables do get turned and you're starting to notice like something is wrong. And it's like, oh, okay, like this is starting to feel like, something's happening to him. Something like dark and sinister is kind of descending upon the set tonight.
And he's not very convincing at first, because like he even tries to make excuses, like, oh, it's
right.
all the lights and the cameras. I'm just a messenger, everyone. Like I can make mistakes. Like he's like, all right, okay, all very convenient excuses for why you're not like saying anything interesting. But okay,
yeah. And again, they just do a good job of like, even though like again, like neither of us were alive during this time period, and I don't think any of us regularly go back and watch like 70s talk shows, but when this guy comes out, like just the way he looks and his name and stuff, like you instantly like know who this character is, and you feel like, oh yeah, I totally know like what the shtick here is, and like I could see this being on, even though maybe they've never done this kind of thing on talk shows before. Like you instantly feel like, oh no, like I could see this as being something that the kind of person they would have had on at this time.
Yeah, for sure. So they go to ad break, and then we get our first sort of glimpse of what that's going to be like, where we go to like a different ratio. We go to 1:6:61, so it's a little bit wider. It's black and white. they sort of, we get this producer character who comes over and talks to Jack and sort of says, okay, so we're good for the next segments. This is what's coming. The girl's on her way, blah, 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 blah. I don't remember that anything been particularly juicy in this first one beyond just this general idea of like, they're worried about the ratings. This is kind of their last ditch effort to try and like drum up some interest. So they're hoping tonight's show is going to be a big deal. Because I think it's the next ad break after this, because obviously the medium vomits like black goo like during the next part, and it's during the ad break after that one where it's like, oh yeah, the phone board is like lighting up, like everyone's calling in to see if he's okay. There's a lot of interest. This is good TV.
Yeah, I kind of wish they maybe would have done like something different with him, or I don't know. I just thought him throwing up just like looked so bad, just looked like CGI.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, the actual visual of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that said though, this next segment is where the second guest comes out, and it's the skeptic character, Carmichael, who they do a really cool introduction with him, and this makes sense in the context of the show, like, because both him and then the girl later get like little video packages explaining who they are, right? You get like photographs and stuff, and like here's a little narrator telling you who they are, and this makes sense. It would be on the show, especially for someone who's not like, super famous already. Like, in this face, he's not got Al Pacino on his couch. He's got this dude. But I really like the dig at Ed and Lorraine Warren. I don't know if you caught this, where he's like, oh yeah, I'm like basically a magician who does like tricks and stuff, but it's just tricks. He does not believe in actual supernatural stuff, and he does like a ghost hunting like show or tour or something like that. And there's like a photograph of him with like a camera and some like like ESP gear or whatever he's got, and he's like, yeah, I invited Ed and Lorraine Warren to do this Amityville ghost hunt, but they were too scared. They didn't want to get involved with that. And I thought, oh man, now I just want like a movie of this guy. Like, I just want him to show up to the next Conjuring. Just give me this guy showing up in the next Conjuring and just like trash talking the Warrens the entire time.
That would be great. He's a very interesting character, though. I like the I like the idea that he's like a very skeptic and is calling people out, but he has like he's part of like this institute or place that researches like psychic phenomena. So it seems like he wants to believe or does believe it in some way, but he's just wants proof, and like is doesn't really like to put up with people that he thinks are charlatans or deceivers and stuff. So I don't know, I thought it was like a good like character motive for him, where
and he has this sort of standing thing where he's willing to pay $100,000 to anyone who proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that something supernatural happened or that they're psychic or whatever. And they point out that he's never paid anyone because no one's ever proved it. And he even ups it to $500,000 if they can prove it during this TV show. If someone can prove that something real happened, he will pay them out. But he's super skeptical. He's got little jabs at everyone. He kind of trash talks the medium, from the first segment, who's still sitting there at this point. And it just like he's very charismatic though. I thought he was a really entertaining character.
Yeah.
I that was all cool stuff, especially later when like the other characters come out and we get the the actual challenging of all the real spooky stuff. Because I mean, as it progresses throughout, like, I mean, really, it's all about the girl, right? It's all about the girl and her like sort of surrogate mother who's taking her in. Because there's a whole bit of backstory here, which much like the skeptic, there's a whole video package of, okay, here's like what's happened to her. And this is, it's interesting. I was reminded of other movies that were about cults and Satanist stuff in the 70s, where it's like, okay, so there was this cult, it's been operating throughout the 70s that was killing infants. It was like, like members were getting pregnant just so they could sacrifice the babies that were being born, and it was all this stuff.
Like, like they're specifically having children to try to be like a vessel for this demon Abraxas, I think it was called. Yeah,
and it was the cult of Abraxas, yeah. So, and when they were going to get caught, because I can't remember exactly what the reason was in the video package, but they were going to get caught. So like the cult leader basically ordered them to like set themselves on fire and set the place on fire. And this girl, who they believe has got a demon inside her, was like the survivor. She survived this. She was in the cult as a young girl, so it wasn't really her choice to be there. But she is now being taken care of by this woman named June, who's a parapsychologist, who has done lots of research with her and talked to this apparent demon that's inside of her, and that's their whole thing. So that sets up a whole bunch of stuff there, and it does tie into like the host's backstory as well. But I mean, what did you think of this part of it, the presentation of like her backstory? Because I thought that was pretty solid for the most part.
No, I agree. I liked it. Again, I think the strength is that it did, feel like it was emulating something from that era, like really invoking like the whole satanic panic of it all. And I think it works to kind of have this little clip package or montage, like again, like versus something in the beginning that again I felt like was just too much of an info dump. Like this, it works here because it's like organically being shown on the show, and it feels like something like the type of actual news report or snippets of it that you would see on something like this. And I kind of like that. Again, there's like escalation throughout the guests, like the first one who's this medium, but it seems like he's not that good at it. He's not really doing much. And then you have this like magician who's like a skeptic, so like nothing really is gonna happen there. And then it's amped up to like an actual like host of a demon child there. And if you want to be really nitpicky, I feel like you could probably say that they're not really doing anything that like is new, like in terms of like what we kind of normally see, like as like people that are possessed on film. But I thought this actress did do a good job, and like she was actually kind of like creepy. Like there's something I actually think like she was more creepy like when she wasn't going into like her demon state or whatever.
That's what I was going to say. I think the unique part of her character isn't so much when they do the whole, can the demon come out and speak to us, but it was more the idea that she does go around like a normal kid when she's like not like she's able to like shut the demon out and kind of still be normal to a point. And I say that because, like you say, like some of the way she says things when she's being quote unquote normal actually come off way more creepy. The way she talks to Jack, like she knows him. And it's like, oh, it's nice to see you, Jack. Oh, June says you're very handsome, Jack. And there's even a moment where it's like she says something that no one else notices, but it's just for Jack to hear. And it's like, there's just these little moments that kind of just, they feel eerie because it's like she's presenting herself as like a nice, happy, young 13, 14-year-old girl, whatever she's meant to be. And I thought those moments worked really well. They actually, demon stuff, when they do, okay, we're going to talk to the demon now. Yeah, it's pretty by the numbers in terms of like, oh, she's got some veins in her face, she's got a voice and, and whatnot. She's saying inappropriate things. The voice is
deeper. And,
yeah.
And it's not horribly done. It's just, at this point, I feel like, okay, this is like the shtick for every, possessed girl we've seen in a movie. Yeah,
it's one of those things though, like at this point though, what else do you do? Like,
sure, yeah.
I think there's probably some different things you can do, but by and large, if you don't want to reinvent that part of the wheel.
Actually, you know what? I will give it credit because I think like these first moments when you see her possessed, it's kind of by the numbers, but then by the end, I guess when she goes kind of full demon or whatever, I thought that was actually pretty different. Like,
oh sure, like the final like chaos kind of moment, sure. But like I say though, it's the sort of thing where like if the point of the movie is not to reinvent the demonic part, it's more the presentation of it in the confines of a TV show. I get why they still want a more traditional demonic possession. Good point, it's kind of like you can do like inventive kind of different types of vampire things. Like you want to do a marten or something like that that's very, very different from typical vampires, and that's fine. But I think if you're doing something with the point of the vampire stories that you want to do gothic locations, well, you're probably doing a traditional Dracula at that point, kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
It's all about what you want from it, and I feel like, given that this wasn't going to get the, because, you know, we get like half the movie before this girl even comes out for the show. So I don't think you reinvent the wheel of how the possession works too much, because that's something you have to devote the whole movie. You have to learn what this movie's language is for the possession. What are the traits? What does it do? That's where you spend the whole movie defining it. And a lot of what we're seeing here was defined by The Exorcist. The Exorcist defined what this standard version of a possessed girl is. So it's shorthand that the audience will understand. Obviously, there's always a balance with that, because sometimes if there's too much shorthand, it's just a bunch of cliches there. You're just doing all the tropes, and there's nothing else. This has other things around it, though, that are making it more interesting, for sure. Yeah,
definitely. Like, if the movie ended up being about them trying to get like two priests to come in and give her an exorcism, then I'm sure it'd be a lot more tedious. But
no. Yeah. This is more a movie about exploiting something like this for your own personal gain, which is what
definitely
what Jack, the host, is kind of doing to try and save his TV show. It's worth mentioning as well, before they even come out, like in one of the ad breaks, like June comes and talks to him and is basically hesitant about doing like anything, like, you know, oh, this is maybe too much for her. She was acting weird. She started talking about you as if she knew you, like yesterday when she was like in her demonic episode, and she'd never done that before. And he's like, oh, it's fine. She's excited to be on the show. It's whatever. Like, let's just do it. Like, he's always full steam ahead, right? And she makes it very clear before they come out that she is not to do a demonstration of her being possessed. We're not doing like a demon talk because it's too much for her. But then, of course, Jack is a bit of a dick and kind of like inches that live on camera so that like the skeptic wants it, because he wants proof that it can happen, and the entire audience basically guilt June into this because she doesn't want to do it, and the audience are like, come on, do it, prove the skeptic wrong, kind of thing.
And some things to probably mention too, I feel like it's kind of maybe easier to skip by like some of the behind the scenes stuff because you get focused on the show. But like, but I don't think we really mentioned that. One of the things that happens during the behind the scenes segments, must have been by this point, is that
definitely by this point.
Yeah, the what's his face, the medium, Chris Dew or whatever, died on his way to a hospital. So people are kind of freaking out about that and being like, oh, like, yeah, don't say this around people. And then Gus has also been coming up to Jack, and he seems to be like very hesitant about all this because it seems like I'm assuming it's probably like maybe like kind of religious or something, but it feels like they're like playing around with things they shouldn't be.
Gus is getting very uncomfortable about what the show is at this point, and is asking like them to change things and not do anything, anything else that's going to incur the wrath of any demons or anything like that.
So that does give it like some nice tension between when you're going from the behind the scenes stuff to the actual show, where like everyone on the show is trying to keep up a good face and be like, all right, let's roll on with the show and stuff. But then when you get to the behind the scenes stuff, and everyone kind of has like these different things that they're starting to get worried about or nervous about or excited about, so there's a good dichotomy between those. I
mean, the entire presentation of the movie, because of the TV show element, it effectively means that sometimes the engaging part of watching the characters is looking for what they're hiding because they're on TV and they have to keep a presentation mode on, kind of thing. And like, when are we seeing the real people, and when are we seeing just like, oh, this is the TV face and this is the TV voice, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that stuff's super interesting. But they do a whole presentation. They do a whole thing where they get her in a chair, and she's like, let's talk to Mr. Wriggles, which is what the girl calls the demon. And they dim the lights and it gets all spooky, and she talks in her demonic voice, and everyone's reacting. And honestly, hearing an audience gasp does like add a little bit to it. It's kind of like this is kind of, wrestling match is boring if you just watch it in silence, but if you hear a crowd cheer and ooh and ah and whatever, it adds a lot to it.
I forgot to mention that too. Like that's another interesting aspect to this that again you wouldn't really get from other horror movies, obviously, because they're not in this setting. But the fact that there's an audience there that's watching, and actually thought they probably could have played it up a little bit more, like having times when the audience laugh or like you said, gasp or are shocked and stuff. But I always like when stuff like that happens because it's reminding you like, oh yeah, this is like a live TV show. There's actually people out there.
Yeah, it's been almost interesting if maybe not, I don't know. I'm just in my head imagining what if they did like a Truman Show style thing where it cut around some like characters who are watching it at home and like do we get like some reactions from like specific people, but that would definitely break the illusion of we're just watching this tape kind of thing. That would be more, you know, we're watching a movie at that point kind of thing. But anyway, so the interesting things here is, and they kind of hinted at this in one of the backstage segments before privately, but she basically flat out says in her demonic voice that Jack and this lady June are currently in a relationship, and saying that they're having sex and whatnot, and everyone gets kind of like ooh and uncomfortable and it's whatever. But the demon also turns to Jack and says, "Oh, it's nice to see you again. Last time it was under the big tall trees," referencing, of course, the fact that he goes to these retreats with all these other rich guys in California every year, and it's meant to be just like this nice sort of, oh, it's a vacation for a couple of weeks in the forest. But I was like, oh no, there's like rumors that they actually do some like rituals and things like that. So what we start to piece together at this part in the movie is that this demon also comes from whatever he was doing in the forest. And just to get into it here, I guess, is that the idea, broadly speaking, is that he made a deal with the devil, and I think perhaps without knowing what the price was, that the price was his wife dying, because they really made an effort at the start to say, oh, his healthy wife who's in the prime of her life gets lung cancer even though she's never smoked. And it's like, okay, so it's kind of this miraculous, like, not that it's impossible that can happen, but, you know, it's relatively, like, out of nowhere. And this idea that he got a bump in ratings because of the whole dying wife thing a year ago when he had the wife on the show, but now it's like still going and like the ratings have been declining, and this is his like last ditch effort to try and make things right again. And the way that the ending wraps up gave me the impression that the demon, which also happens to be the demon that the cult were trying to raise, that this girl was involved in, basically they're using him to complete the ritual to unleash the demon into the world, right? And that's what the whole point of this night is, right? Which is why I said it is kind of important what his backstory is and the context of that, because it's like, because basically after this he is going to be famous, he is going to be remembered more than any other late night talk show host, just not for reasons that it's almost a monkey's paw thing. It's like, oh, right, yeah. I want to be the most famous talk show host ever. Okay, well, you're going to murder people live on air and no one will ever forget you, kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, and honestly it's debatable like how many people he himself actually killed at the end, but we'll get to that. I just wanted to, because I feel like this is the moment where it kind of starts to go down this path, because this is where like the girl starts hinting at, hey, you know, I know you from the woods, I've met you before, and like honestly I wasn't sure if he even like realized what she meant by that. Like it kind of seemed like his reaction was kind of genuine and that he was confused by it, but I don't know if that's just because maybe part of the rituals is that he, like, you know, he forgot, because that's like part of it, like, oh, he doesn't know he made a deal with the devil kind of thing.
Or just like when he's on the air, he doesn't, or yeah, because I think that was like when they were on the air, but like he probably wants to, you know, doesn't want to allude to anything when the cameras are on. Yeah,
it's one of those things where one of the backstage segments earlier on, the skeptic guy says, hey, that like club you've got, that retreat you go to every year, maybe you could get me in there, I want an invite. Like that would be enough to like maybe add a few other lines there, but that would be enough to set up that idea, that breadcrumb, rather than have it in the opening. Because in the open, it really felt like, okay, you've just told me he goes to something that might be a cult. Like, right, yeah. You know, so that's going to be in the back of my head there from the start of the movie. It might have been wiser to leave that until a later tease, but, you know.
No, I agree. Again, I don't think... I wasn't really too wild about this stuff. I think if you are going to do it, again, yeah, definitely don't have the thing in the beginning. Just try to have, like, you know, some slightly more like hints or something to it, instead of just like it is weird to be in the beginning like, oh yeah, by the way, he was also in this weird cult that people aren't sure what they do.
I think if you take out the part where they talk about that retreat that might be a cult, and leave the opening. I mean, it's a bit of an expo dump still, but I think it would probably play a lot better because it wouldn't be giving you this one big extra, like, okay, that really sticks out amongst all the other information you gave there.
Yeah.
Before the start of this. So.
Yeah, because like the other stuff, like it feels like, okay, this is in context for the movie. It's like, there's this guy, he's a late night host, he has his show, he had a wife, he brought the wife on the show. Okay, all seems like stuff I guess we need to know. And then, oh yeah, he also goes to this weird retreat that people aren't really sure. It's like, okay, that seems like a little weird out of nowhere.
Yeah, that felt extraneous in that case. So we have this whole thing. The chair even levitates at the end, and it's like, okay, that's fine. The only thing I didn't like about this segment is that towards the end of it, there was a bit with it was like electricity was like running through the cables.
Yeah,
that felt really over the top and not just because it looked kind of like CG or whatever, but it just felt more kind of like less grounded. Like I was expecting this to feel more grounded until things really hit. Not that what happens when she does go supernova at the end is grounded by any means, but at least the visual was so goddamn cool that I couldn't help but kind of like it. Whereas this just felt like, oh, we've got like magic lights moving around now.
Yeah, and I just really didn't think it looked that great, and it feels like a weird disconnect because it's like, all right, even if it was like good CGI, I don't know, it seems like weird to have this like old aesthetic, but then like with this, CGI stuff, which feels very, even if it was good, it still, I don't know, would seem like more modern or something. I don't know. I feel like you could have just had like some lights flickering or something. You don't need like lightning bolts going throughout the studio.
Yeah, for sure. It was just a bit too over the top, I think, and took me out of it a little bit. But I mean, the general vibe of this like moment though, with the possession and talking to the demon and the chair levitating, and just how apologetic the girl was once she like snaps out of it and like June slaps her. I thought most of that I was still really into though. I was still kind of like, okay, the weird light thing was a bit of a slight misstep, but I wasn't really that down at this point at all.
Oh sure, yeah.
It's much better as well. The skeptic, obviously, even before this point, there's like a weird noise at one point from the theremin that's over at the band's area.
Oh, right.
And he just goes up and unplugs it, and he's like, it's just feedback from the sound. I was like, okay, but why was there no feedback until this moment? No, that's still
right. Yeah,
begs a bit of discussion. I will say, like, it does do that movie trope of like the skeptic's the bad guy, and the people who believe in all this stuff are all the good people. Because I think in real life it is very different. Because I think in real life the mediums are like, taking advantage of people.
Oh sure, no, I agree.
So it is kind of weird that in movies the medium's always the good character and the skeptic's always the asshole. When I'm not sure that's actually tracking for real life, but I
mean, obviously, like. The very easy, clear example is Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are just like portrayed as like this beautiful, picturesque, amazing couple. But
yeah, they're good movie characters.
Do a quick Google of what their real lives were like. Yeah,
the real people not as good. So this is such a weird thing. But he does play being the dick skeptic very well. I will say that.
He's very fun to watch. I do feel like he could maybe be like a little more credulous, like after seeing the chair levitate and stuff. But I do kind of like that he is just like, nah, that was all like bullcrap. I know.
Yeah, well, so what's so funny is though, is because this really gets into the last act of the movie, because he's kind of like, after the ad break, he's like, okay, that was a. The production value of those tricks were very good, but it was still just a trick. And like, wait, how could you explain that? We all saw that. What's going on? He's like, hypnosis. That's what it was. It's hypnosis. I can prove it.
So I'm interested to see what you thought of this next scene, because I don't know. I think it's kind of cool, but also, I don't know. It feels a little weird to me. It feels like another thing that kind of breaks the illusion of the movie. But I mean, I guess the explanation is that you as the audience watching this are being hypnotized as well. But I don't know. It's kind of strange.
It is a bit strange. So he gets Gus, right? He sits Gus down and he's like, I'm going to hypnotize him, and I'm going to hypnotize the audience as well, right? So the audience at home, everyone in the studio, watch the monitors, and there's some close-ups of this spinning, thing in his watch. And it's like, okay, And then he basically talks to Gus and he's like, hey, you've got a fear of worms. And he keeps saying, hey, he's starting to feel itchy, he's starting to feel uncomfortable. And then eventually, like, Gus is pulling worms out of a hole in his neck. And then eventually he rips open his stomach and there's just worms coming out. And he's like really upset and he's like crying. Everyone's freaking out. And then like the skeptic just kind of snaps his fingers more or less. And like it's all over. And like Gus is just there with his shirt open and he's like, wait, what happened here? And everyone else in the room's just kind of like, we all saw that, right? And I do appreciate at the very least they do like say, hey, like, did that work for did everyone see the worms coming out of his stomach? Mm-hmm. And they say, did anyone not see it? And there was like maybe 3 or 4 people in the audience put their hands up, and I'm like, okay, I appreciate that you're saying at least for a few people that didn't work. But obviously we were watching a movie, so it did work for us because they just showed that. But
yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's a little strange. Because on the one hand, it feels very unbelievable to me that like, yeah, that you could again, like you said, yeah, there's a few people that say they didn't see it, but it seems like the majority of people are seeing it. Obviously, as the audience, we are seeing it, but it feels like I don't know, like if you go to like a hypnotism show, like, you know, the person on stage might get hypnotized, but like it's not like the whole audience does too. Like it's I don't know, it seems a little unbelievable, but I also feel like maybe I just might be nitpicking a little bit because I actually do think it is a really cool scene. Like the special effects on here like looked great. Like him pulling out the worms, I thought it was, I don't know, really cool, and yeah, had some nice gore and stuff to it. I really like when, you know, Gus is doing this and like everyone's freaking out, and then the girl is just like laughing. She's like, why is Gus being so silly? Like I thought that was fun. So
which I thought was fun because it was like it was implying that she didn't see it because she's a demon. She can't see. Hypnosis isn't going to work in her. Like she's just seen Gus act like an idiot. Yeah, I think what was interesting about it, like, mechanically to me, is that right after this, they're like, "Hey, can we watch that footage back to see like because we all saw these worms. Like, so what the hell happened there?" And they show the footage back, but without the hypnosis part at the start. And it does just show Gus kind of reacting to nothing and opening his shirt and there's nothing there. There's no worms. And everyone's like, wow, that's wild. And I thought, this is really interesting that if you just play it back without the part with the hypnosis, it just works. And okay, that's interesting. He's kind of making some point. In the context of the movie, he's making point. I don't believe in the real world this would work, but in the context of what you're doing in the movie, this is fair enough.
I just feel really bad for Gus.
Oh,
the poor guy, he already didn't want to do it, and then first you're freaking him out like by making it like, you know, making him think he has like one of his greatest fears like coming out of him, but then also he's just like so embarrassed by having freaked out and like, you know, take off his shirt on live TV. Like, poor guy.
Oh, for sure. And he was the one that was already showing concerns about everything else. He's like, oh, this whole night's kind of freaky. But right afterwards, like June, or maybe it's even the girl, it may even be the girl who says, hey, can we watch the footage back of what happened to her earlier, right? If you're claiming that was achieved with the floating chair and the demonic voice, if you're claiming that even though June never had like a hypnosis device out to do this to the audience, if you're claiming this is how they did that, then what if we watch it back like we just did that? And I'm like, that makes sense. That's a good idea. And I think actually it wasn't June, it was definitely the girl, because June actually doesn't want to do it. June's like, let's not dig into this anymore. Let's not like keep going with this. We're getting into dangerous territory. I don't want any of this to keep going further. But Jack's like, no, I think we can't leave the audience dangling here. We have to like sort of see if this test holds up with that footage as well. And they watch the footage back, but sure enough, all of it's still there. Like the eyes are there, the voice is still there, everything's there. And then is this where everything just goes bananas? I think it is, more or less.
Yeah, I forget a little bit about the sequence here, but I mean, there's not much else that happens. So just I forget what like the causing incident is, but this is basically when like things start going to shit.
Yeah, basically like the skeptic's having trouble kind of explaining it, and basically like some of the electricity, it's almost like the girl herself, Lily, starts to distort like she's a TV signal herself. She's sort of flickering at the sides, and has like a little bit of electricity around her, which I thought was a cool look. But she kind of just floats in the air, and her head splits open, and like lights coming out of it, which sounds like silly, but it did kind of look cool actually. It looked kind of like,
yeah, I was digging this. Like again, it's something interesting that I haven't seen before. Like just a monster whose head is just split open.
yeah, but they're not split open in like a fleshy way. It's like like I say, it's like a video signal splitting apart. So it's got like a really, it's almost like it's using the power of being broadcast on TV, and now that so many people believe that the demon exists because they've just proven it to an extent, that it's feeding off that energy and all the, so it's all like TV signal and like airwaves and stuff that's like kind of making up this visual. I don't know. I thought that was like a really interesting choice. But Gus tries to like run away, he pulls out a little cross and he tries to. And this is 1976. It's been 3 years since The Exorcist came out. He quotes The Exorcist and says, "The power of Christ compels you." And she just like looks at him and makes his head snap 180 degrees. So Gus just dies very quickly. And then June tries to hold up her pendant thing. And again, the demon just makes it strangle herself with the chain, and she dies. So everyone's running scared. Jack's trying to get away. He's over just sort of watching in horror as this is all happening. The skeptic meets his end as well here.
Not before he like pledges his loyalty to the demon. Like he totally like switches sides. Like he's like, oh, like whatever you want, I'll do it. And he even offers him the check.
He does. He tries to hold out the check, like the demon cares about money.
Yeah.
But there's a great moment where Jack's kind of watching, and it's sort of staring back at him before we get to this like final part. And I kind of liked this moment because it was kind of like he was seeing the consequences of everything he's done. Like he kept pushing all night, saying, "No, we have to create drama. We have to create something special that'll put everything over the top. I need success. I need to be like the hottest TV host in town. This is how we're going to do it." So it's like these consequences, like staring the consequences in this weird split up face. I thought that was a really cool idea. And then I think the movie, we get to the ending here, right? And I do think this is where the movie falls apart for me in terms of its presentation, because okay, depending on how it wrapped up, at least, because when it immediately cut to like Jack, and he's like walking out in the TV studio again, and it's like he's there at the start of the show, and he doesn't understand why, and the aspect ratio changes again for the first time to a new ratio, which is like the full movie widescreen ratio, right? And I'm like, okay, so the ratio is telling me that we're again in a different like thing. We're not seeing the behind the scenes stuff. We're not seeing the TV show. We're seeing something different. And we basically see him go through a lot of the guests that he had in the opening like montage, where it's sort of happening again, but he's like acting differently because he's like, wait, I'm not meant to be here. All this shit just happened. What's going on? And the guests or whoever are just like, reacting differently and being like, oh, Jack, why are you not playing along? Why are you not being a host? Blah, blah, blah. And I thought, oh, maybe they're going for he's been sent to hell or something, and he's reliving all these things. And I'm not saying I'd have loved that, but at least it would have like felt like, okay, it feels justified then that we're seeing it in this way, I suppose. But then it ends with something I really didn't like, which is basically the cult leader of Abraxas shows up, and it's almost like all the people in the crowd that were wearing masks, including the skeleton guy, might have been members of the cult, because they're all kind of standing around, like watching, as like the Abraxas guys giving the ceremonial dagger to him. Which, by the way, which was there anyway, because like when June came out, it was like, here's the items we recovered from the cult fire that happened, and which actually one of my favorite little funny lines of the episode is that we've not really mentioned him because he's not that much of a character per se, but in all the behind the scenes stuff, there's this guy who's like the floor manager who's going around like giving orders, and like he's got the headset on, and he's like, there's one moment where he just walks past the camera and says, "Where's my ceremonial dagger?" And it was just a funny line, because it wasn't like, it just sounded funny. Basically, they give him the ceremonial dagger, and then they open the doors to the set, and behind the doors is his dying wife in a like a bed with like a breather and like the bag of fluid and whatnot, the IV drip. And I'm like, what are we doing here? This feels like it's getting a little bit like, that supernatural ending of a movie, kind of like schmaltzy kind of ending. And he comes over, and she's repeating some of the lines she said earlier about loving him and whatnot. But She's like, you have to do it, Jack. This is, it's basically spelling out this whole idea that he made a deal, and the result of that deal was that his wife was killed for the devil kind of thing. And then when he stabs her with the ceremonial dagger, because she asked for him to do so, she's like, no, like that, I want you to do one last thing for me, is kill me with this dagger. Once he does that, it snaps back to reality, and he's in the TV studio, and he's just stabbed Lily, the possessed girl. He's killed her, and there's dead bodies lying around, and the camera just pulls back, and that's basically the end of the movie, right? And I read that as this cult raised this girl to be the conduit, the avatar for this demon they want to unleash onto the world, or the devil himself, whatever we're calling him. And also he's like apparently abracadabra comes from Abraxas. That's like an actual thing according to the movie. That's why we say abracadabra. It comes from that demon.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They said that at one point. Pay attention, Tim.
I think I missed it. Or I don't remember it, but okay.
I was kind of reading this as like, okay, they wanted him to like unleash the demon, right? The idea that this girl eventually had to be killed. And I don't know if this was part of the original deal he made, or they're just using him because he'd already made a deal before and it was like convenient. And it was almost the idea of like, he won't be able to resist having her on the show. He won't be able to resist pushing her to get like a good moment for the TV ratings, and that all that hubris, all that ego and desire to be the most remembered and most successful. Because there's a good moment in hindsight, actually, as much as I don't like the ending that much, as the camera's pulling back as he's standing there with the blade, you do hear some like police sirens in the distance. There's a moment early on in the movie, where he hears sirens like halfway through the movie, and it's just like a little moment where he sort of shakes his head and it goes away. But it's almost like the entire movie's taking place in his head for like in a very short amount of time or something like that.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't catch that at first.
Yeah. Actually, the other thing we didn't mention as well is at one point they stopped the footage. Like they're watching the footage of the demon bit, and he notices something in the tape, and he asks them to slow it down and go frame by frame.
Oh, right, yeah.
And there's like basically the ghost of his wife seemingly is in the background. And my favorite part of how they did this is that when it cuts to his reaction when he sees her, there's a close up of his face, and you can see her hand on his shoulder in that close up. I thought that was a neat little moment. It's a little creepy moment, but yeah. Anyway, like regardless, like. I don't mind what the story's doing here in terms of, okay, this was all designed to make him kill her to release the demon. I am a-okay with that plot thread. I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's fine as a motivation to like have all this happen. And they sort of counted on him like wanting like all this success, and that's why it was a sure thing. That's all fine to me. What I don't like was how it was presented by like changing this perspective and going into this new format and seeing the dead wife on the bed. Like I didn't like being inside his head for that portion. I almost felt like the ending implied that even he was the one that killed the others as well. Like it wasn't even the girl. I mean, I could be wrong, but I almost got this vibe with all these dead bodies around him that he's taken the fall for all of this, right? And I mean,
I'm sure he'll be to blame. I guess I kind of assume that when the demon's like freaking out and just sending all those like electric bolts and stuff, that I assume she was probably just killing a lot of people there. But I could see that either way though. Like when he's in his fugue state or whatever, maybe he's actually the one killing these people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's up in there. You can sort of decide if you believe that or not. For me though, the biggest problem is that we basically break the format and go inside his head, which betrays the idea that we're watching this master tape. Like, I can accept, there's a little bit of suspension of disbelief, but I can accept that all the black and white stuff was just captured in between the segments of the show. But for me, this part where he's inside his head and he's sitting down with his dead wife, for me, that was like, okay, that's like, I'm not, like, you've broken the whole point of the movie to me with this a little bit. So the ending to me is the weakest part.
No, I definitely agree with that. Again, I don't love this idea, of like the cult coming back to him and everything. But I don't know, like I probably still wouldn't have loved it, but I don't know. Again, to me, I just like the idea more of like him just being kind of like a ratings hungry guy, and then his mistake is the hubris of bringing on this possessed girl and egging her on and that kind of thing. But
yeah, no, I still don't think it works without the connection to him having something to do with like the cult in some way in the back. Like see if it was just like, no, the cults are still using him to like do this. It's because they recognize who he is, and like that he will go through with it, and that'll unleash the demon, right? That'd be fine on its own. Like if you just like, kept the stuff with that he exploited his wife dying to try and pop ratings, that would set up the character. It would be a good reason why the cult would think, oh, he will do this. Like he clearly has got no shame and will do anything to try and be successful. You don't necessarily need the idea that he made a deal with the devil at some point in the back story to have that work. I think it'd be fine without it. I kind of agree with that. I don't mind it though. It's more just how it's presented for me.
Oh no, I mean, I definitely agree with that. Like, maybe it wouldn't be as big a deal for me if they chose a different way to show it all off at the end, because it just really it just takes you out of the movie so much when it's like, what is happening? Like, we were watching a talk show at first, and now like we're doing these weird trippy sequences in your head and stuff. Like, I don't know. I just would have preferred something else. And like I said before, it's like frustrating because it's not like it's bad enough that like it ruins the whole movie or anything. It's just that there was like a lot that I really liked, like you were saying, like the vibes and stuff of the movie, and like I like most of the stuff like when it was like throughout the TV show, but then just doing like that kind of stuff at the end just really takes you out of it. It's a shame.
Yeah, it's like I said. Yeah, I agree. It doesn't ruin the movie for me at all. I still feel positive overall, and I still like the movie. But the ending definitely deflates it a little bit. Like what could have been something really special and great, I come out just saying is good, and I think that for me is where I'm standing. I want to get that across because I don't like we tend to be relatively harsh. I think we're not afraid to say when something sucks, and we do think a lot of modern horror movies do suck because there's a lot of them, and some 2023 was a rough year, okay, but
I mean we've done over like 500 episodes at this point, so we've watched a lot,
and we've done a top 100. Okay, just last year we did a top 100. You can go see what movies we think are great and we love and whatnot. And I do think this is one of the better modern movies we've watched in some time, like by far.
Yeah.
So I want to focus more on the positives, I guess. But
I mean, just look like we obviously have a lot to say about it though, which is like if it was just like a boring, generic, Hollywood hack kind of movie, we wouldn't have that much to say. We would just be like, all right, so here's what happened, and then like, all right, whatever. Here's our ratings. Like the fact that I think we are invested in actually like discussing a lot of this stuff means that we were into it, as opposed to something that just kind of passed over us or whatever.
Yeah, it's a shame because it does feel like a really great idea for a movie, and I think it gets a lot of it right, but it does feel like they just didn't have the confidence to stick to what their idea was. And because of that last 5 minutes just feels like there was just there was other ways. Something else could have been done, and it felt like a bit of a cop out to just do that to me. So the ending's a bummer. The ending for sure is a bummer, which is a real shame because I liked a lot of other things about it, seemingly a little bit more than you did even. But the problems are there. It is definitely imperfect, and that's it is what it is. It's but still liked it quite a bit. I think it's obviously it's not the first 2024 movie we've done, and arguably this technically counts as 2023 because it's copyrighted as that. But as far as we're concerned, it's 2024. It didn't come out wide until 2024, so it's a 2024 movie. But
like the you know the it had like a fairly decent theater release. Like it was a short theater release, but I don't know, just the fact that it was in theaters in 2020.
Sure. The point I was getting at though is that we've only done two 2024 movies, this and Night Swim, and I would say that the average is already better than 2023 just based on these two, and it's not because of Night Swim. Okay, Night Swim
no.
Night Swim was not good. I think this is a good movie. It just does have some flaws that I wished had been ironed out, and they thought of a more inventive or smarter way to do the ending whilst not betraying what the entire format of the movie was. I feel like, I mean, obviously this is, I'm talking a lot about format here because this movie's got this gimmick where it's meant to be this 70s TV show, and that's what we're watching. But this isn't that different really to when a supernatural movie sets up a bunch of rules, but then the ending breaks the rules. It's kind of similar in the way I'm annoyed at it, because I'm like, no, you betrayed the rules you set up, and I don't like you betrayed that rule. I felt cheated when you did that at the end. So, yeah.
You would like to talk to the manager.
And also, like, the whole idea that I guess the one part of like Jack's story that it does feel a little bit like pointless to me now in hindsight is that revealing that him and June were in a relationship felt like it didn't really add that much to anything. Because first of all, if they only just started dating in recent months, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. It's not like they revealed, he was having an affair with her before his wife died. I don't think they ever implied that, so who gives a shit? I mean, maybe if they're suggesting that he is exploiting his new partner for this connection, because she has this connection to this girl, and she can be a guest on the show. The idea that he's exploiting a new spouse, effectively, I can see maybe what they're getting at with that idea, but I don't think it's such a small part of it overall that I don't think it really added much to the movie, that he is, in a relationship with her. But,
Yeah, it's unnecessary.
Again, it's the sort of thing where I think if they did more with it, I'd say there's more of a point to it. But as it is in the movie, it doesn't feel like it adds that much.
Yeah.
Anywho. Tim, would you like to rate Late Night with the Devil?
Yeah. Again, it's kind of an interesting one to rate because, I feel like often, especially with a lot of the 2023 movies we did, it's just like, there's just not a lot to like about this here. But this one, I think there was a lot to like, but then there's also a lot that brought it down for me. Not to the point again where I hated it or had a bad time, but like we were saying before, there's just a lot of stuff that kept it from being what could have possibly been something like really great or special. And instead, I think we get something that's just good. It's not bad. I had a fun time watching it, and then there are high points and there are low points. So I was kind of floating around like a 7-ish area, but I think I'm gonna go one below, and I'm just gonna dock them like half a point for AI. So I'm gonna give it a 6.5. Again, it's very watchable. I would definitely, I mean, maybe with the AI controversy aside, like if you don't want to watch it because of that, like I understand, but I mean, I would say if anyone's curious, definitely check it out. It's on Shudder now, so that's a lot of horror fans, have it or are familiar with it, so it's easy enough to get, and it makes for an entertaining watch. But again, it's just kind of disappointing and frustrating that there was stuff that I feel like it would have been like easy enough stuff to correct. It's not like things like I know why they had to do this that way because it's they didn't have the money or this happened or whatever. It's like, no, like I feel like just you could have ironed some stuff out in the script or just been a little more confident in the what you're presenting. But it is what it is. Like you said, though, it's still definitely a high point of I feel like a lot of recent things that we've been checking out. So
yeah, I think it's a good movie. It's got a really cool, interesting premise. It feels unique to watch because of that. It feels like it's got its own vibe, which doesn't, even though it's delving into some ideas that we've had in other movies, possession wise, it doesn't feel like it's just a possession movie. It doesn't feel like we're just replaying bits from The Exorcist or whatever. And I think that's one of its biggest assets. So I think I'm happy to go 7.5. I think it's just not quite great, and I think the ending, and again, it's not really even the final moment, right? The final shot and revealing sort of where we are with the character and that he stabbed Lily. That's fine. I have no problem with the plot of where it's gotten there. It's the entire idea of how it's presented and how we go inside his head. It feels like it betrays the entire format of the movie. And the format of this movie is actually a very, very big selling point, because you basically abandon it and just do a regular movie scene, and a really cliched movie scene at that, where it's like, oh, he's seeing his dead wife, and it's all, I don't know. I really felt betrayed by that, and it really does hurt it from getting into great territory. But I think I like this enough and the vibe of it enough that I think I will be watching it again at some point. I think, as a Halloween piece of viewing, it'll probably get a good bit of replays from a lot of people. So yeah.
My kind of rule now is I haven't been buying as much stuff lately unless it has a really good steelbook. But if they put out a nice steelbook Blu-ray of this, I'd probably be pretty tempted to grab it.
Yeah. So that's Late Night with the Devil, everyone. Pretty good, but not maybe quite as amazing as the initial marketing kind of got us hyped for. But hey, I mean, the marketing did its job. It got us interested in the movie, so I can't really fault them in that. So yeah, next time on the show, we will be looking at another recent release, and that is Lisa Frankenstein, going for more of a horror comedy. So we'll see how that is next time on the show. Like I said at the start, though, you can support all the content in the show over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Every month there's an exclusive episode that you only get if you're a patron or a YouTube member. Although YouTube members are far behind, so it'll be a while before they get the new bonus episode. But yeah, so you get that. Plus at the $5 tier and up, you get access to even more streams, which is bonus segments that we do, where we do sort of random top fives, or maybe talk about some recent movie news or horror trailers or stuff like that. There tends to be about a couple of those every month. So that's the stream stuff. But of course, there's bonuses for all the other movie shows that I do with David. So go and have a look and see if you're interested in helping keep the show alive and keeping the lights on and all that stuff. But that about does it, Tim. It's been a late night with the devil.
It has, yeah.
You being the devil,
of course.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of if I knew kind of a cliched line that a talk show host would end his show on. I would say here, but I feel like I was never able to stay up that late. I usually be done by about the second or so guest.
Maybe that's why the stand-up comedy career never paid off. You never studied all the greats at their prime enough.
That could very well be. Yeah.
Oh well, that's the show, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Like I said, we'll see you next time for Lisa Frankenstein. Thank you for watching. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.